10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, Episode 24. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. This is episode 24, and this week is going to finish up our look at the foundational sort of technical exercises that I think that every improviser needs to know. So we went over a nice major mode exercise. We also went over a chord tone and extension exercise. And today we're going to be looking at a couple of core chromatic exercises. And this will be the end in this series of podcasts on your foundational stuff. So before we get going into the lesson this week, I wanted to mention a couple of really exciting things that are happening over at 10-Minute Jazz Lesson. We have a couple of different ways now to support the podcast. As you probably know, the podcast needs support. As the numbers grow, I'm paying more and more for hosting to get these episodes to you, and it's taking up more and more of my time to get back to emails, put the episodes together, and make sure they're of a really high quality. And we need some support from the listeners out there to keep this show going. So we have a couple of awesome ways for you to support the podcast and get something great in return. The first thing, which I'm really excited about, and I think you guys are going to be excited about too, is a monthly transcription pack. So what I'm doing is I'm transcribing either 4 or 5 solos from one particular artist every single month, putting them together and allowing you to purchase them for $5 a piece. Now that's less than $2 per transcription, and if there's 5 transcriptions, that's only $1 per transcription for you to get those, download them, study them, learn to play them, and ultimately benefit from them. And I think you'd agree that $5 is not a lot of money to contribute every month, unless you're totally broke, and in that way, I totally understand. But if you've got $5 a month to spare and you enjoy this show, please consider buying one of those transcription packs, and you get something awesome in return for it, on top of getting the podcast every week. Now, the second thing that I wanted to mention is at the conclusion of these 3 core exercise podcasts, what I have done is I've taken the exercises that we've gone over, and I've taken a whole bunch more and compiled them into a really short ebook or e-packet, whatever you want to call it, called Foundational Exercises for the Improviser. Now, this has 29 individual exercises that are second to none, that every single improviser that's worth anything needs to know in order to have the building blocks of playing solos down. It'll increase your technique, it'll do ear training for you. It's just, these are power-packed exercises, and there's 29 of them, and it's only going to be $7 for you to get that, and that's another great way to support the podcast. So that's my spiel. I hate asking you guys for money, but it's just a reality on my end. We have a budget, and we need to meet that budget, and it has to be worth it for the time spent to do these. And I think you'll agree that $5 or $7 a month is not all that much to get 4 quality episodes of brand new improvisation stuff. So you can get all these materials by visiting the store tab on our website, which is 10minutejazzlesson.com. That's the number 10, minutejazzlesson.com, and click on the store tab, and you'll be able to find all of this stuff and more. So please support the podcast if you would like to see it still happen every single week. Okay, enough of that. Let's get on to our exercises for today. So as I said, we're going to be covering core chromatic concepts today. And what I have is 5 exercises prepared for you that are going to do a lot more than simply just playing a chromatic scale up and down. They're going to get you all over your horn or instrument and get the chromaticism happening, which you can then translate into the tunes that you play. So chromaticism is really important, particularly in the world of bebop. If you listen to any bebop artists, they are masters of chromaticism. Charlie Parker, Phil Woods, Clifford Brown, all the bebop guys, they really know what they were doing with chromatics. So these exercises are designed to get that chromatic sound in your ears and get you from some facility using chromaticism that you can then translate into your solos. So the first exercise I have for you is very diatonic sounding. It's based on a major scale, but what we're going to be doing is a chromatic approach tone to each step of the scale. And you'll hear when I play it the way that I work this. So basically we'd be starting on the second step of the scale, going down to the first step of the scale, and then chromatically approaching that first step of the scale. Then we jump up to the third, go down to the second, and then we chromatically approach that second. So you'll hear it. It has a strong diatonic flavor, but we have chromaticism worked into that diatonic sound. So here's exercise number 1 for this week. So you can still hear that it's very diatonic, but we have some chromatics built into it. So exercise number 2 is going to get a little bit more complicated. This is less diatonic and more just a straight chromatic exercise, but it's also a really, really beneficial one. So what we're doing in this one is basically we're going up a whole step, down a half step, up a whole step, down a half step. So what we're really doing is we're combining our whole step and half step intervals into one exercise and working our way up the instrument in that way. So this will have a much different sound than exercise number 1, but again, it's really, really beneficial. Here's exercise number 2. All right, so you can hear that that's just a straight up chromatic exercise that has nothing to do with a diatonic major scale. Still very beneficial though, so check that one out. I really, really like that exercise. So exercise number 3 gets even a little bit more complicated. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go down a whole step, up a half step, up a whole step, up a half step, and then we're going to repeat that pattern. So they're getting a little bit more complicated. In case you didn't notice, we're starting with a pretty easy one, the diatonic one, and now we're moving into stuff that's going to take a lot more thought to complete. But again, these are just so good for you, and suffer through the first couple times. I think you're in the greatest danger of giving up when you first start because it's so difficult to get those first couple of times through. So go slow, and here is exercise number 3. All right, so that one's pretty difficult. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that it's easy, but most of the things we do that make us really, really good improvisers are not easy. So get used to it. That's a little bit of tough love, but that one is tricky. So our 4th and final exercise is going to be one that goes up a whole step, up a half step, down a whole step, up a half step. And then that pattern repeats itself over and over and over again. Hopefully you can hear how all these different chromatic exercises are going to accomplish something different. I'm not going to give you a bunch of just really easy stuff that all basically works towards the same goal. I want you to get a variety, and I want your fingers to get a variety of different exercises that are going to benefit you in different ways. So here is exercise number 4. All right, so there you have it, 4 great chromatic exercises that are really going to benefit you when it comes to playing bebop, or really, I said bebop, but chromaticism is really important in any style of jazz that you're playing, whether it be modern, classic stuff, or the bebop stuff. Bebop just kind of informed everything after it, so that's why I tend to think about chromaticism as a bebop thing, but everybody used it. even after the bebop era was kind of over. It's very, very important for you to get this stuff under your fingers. So, like I said, if you want to get these exercises, this week is a little bit different. Please go on and download the foundational exercises for that jazz improviser. And not only will you get these exercises, but you'll get 29 exercises on how to be a better technician on the instrument and some of the core concepts into how to get better at jazz. And again, it's only $7, not too steep. A small contribution goes a long way. There's a ton of you listening. So if each one of you spends a couple of bucks a month, this will be a great thing and continue to support the podcast going forward. I'm not trying to get rich off this podcast, but there is a small budget in place that we could really use your help on. All right. And actually, before we go today, I wanted to also mention I've gotten a lot of questions about the theme music, and people have said that they've really enjoyed that. You can also find that band that I play with called Sojoy, of which our theme music is from our debut album. You'll be able to find a link to purchase that album if you are interested in hearing more of that music. All right, everybody, we will see you next week with a brand new lesson. Next week will be Lick of the Month for the month of July. Have a great week, everybody. I'll talk to you soon.